Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again and welcome to any new viewers. This is To The Point English with Ben. I'm Ben, and in this video you're going to learn 10 really useful advanced adjectives with the suffix less. Now you probably know that usually when we use the suffix less with an adjective, it means without. So it's a noun originally plus the suffix less to make it mean without, so without something. For example, a homeless person is a person without a home, of course. A driverless car is a car without a driver. A thoughtless comment is a comment which hasn't been given much thought, it's without thought. If you go topless on the beach, you are without a top. If you are limitless, you have no limits. If you are fearless, you are without fear. And I could go on, but it would be pointless because the list is almost endless. You see what I did there? So I think you're going to find these adjectives really useful, especially if you're taking a Cambridge English exam for part 3 of the reading and use of English, where you have to often add suffixes or prefixes to create a new word. Okay, let's go straight to the first adjective, which is listless. Listless. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't simply mean without a list. It's not like if you go to a supermarket and you realize you've left your shopping list at home and you say, oh dear, I'm listless. No, we don't use it in that way, unfortunately. No, listless basically means lacking energy or enthusiasm, just a lack of interest in doing anything, really. Now, I'm sure we've all had days like that, right? I know I have. Maybe you're having a day like that today. You know, where you just can't find motivation from anywhere. You just can't be bothered to do anything. So the example sentence is, I know I should study, but I just feel so listless. I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, so this person knows that they should be studying, maybe preparing for an exam, but they just don't have the energy or enthusiasm today, so they'll do it tomorrow when hopefully they won't be so listless. And the next adjective is restless. Restless. Now, the reason I included this on the list is because it doesn't really mean without rest. It doesn't mean that you haven't rested. It means that you are unable to rest or stay still, so to stay in one place, and calm. So, you know, when you just feel you have to move and you have to do things, so you feel restless. Some people are just restless by nature, and others just have restless moments or restless days, and often restless nights. That's a very common collocation, to have a restless night where you don't sleep really well. So the example, on holiday, Jimmy prefers to lie on the beach all day, but his wife is so restless that they have to go and see the sights. So Jimmy and his wife are obviously very different. Jimmy prefers to do nothing, just lie on the beach, stay still and calm. But his wife is restless. She always wants to do something, so they have to see the sights. Now, you may be familiar with the next adjective, but it's often misunderstood. People often get the wrong idea about this adjective, and it's priceless. Priceless. So people sometimes think that priceless means worthless. It has no value, when in actual fact, it's pretty much the opposite. If something is priceless, it's extremely valuable. In fact, it's so valuable that its price cannot be calculated. So the example sentence is, when I was a toddler, I knocked over a priceless vase in a museum. Luckily, it didn't break. So a toddler is a little child who is just about able to walk, but they're often quite clumsy and knocking things over all the time. So in this example, I knocked over a vase in a museum, but not just any vase, it was a priceless vase. Now that's when we're referring to a physical object, but we can also use priceless in a more figurative sense. And often when we're talking about advice. So if somebody gives you really valuable advice, you can say, thank you for your priceless advice. You know, you're just really emphasizing how much you appreciate their advice and how valuable that advice is to you. And the next one's an interesting one. It's feckless. Feckless. Now, feckless means weak, incompetent, ineffective, irresponsible. So that kind of idea is obviously very negative and usually to describe a person or the actions of a person. So let's look at the example. The Prime Minister's feckless response to the pandemic led to him losing the following election. Okay, so a feckless response in this case. So an ineffective, weak response. You know, obviously this is a very negative word, so we would only use it when we're being very critical of someone. And the next one is a really nice one. It's hapless. Hapless. Now, hapless basically means unlucky, but it's a bit more than that, because when you describe someone as being hapless, it suggests that you feel sorry for them, that they are deserving of pity. Because, you know, everybody is unlucky at times in their lives, but if you specifically refer to someone as being hapless, it's because you feel sorry for them and you're empathizing with them, perhaps more than in other situations. And the example sentence, the film's protagonist is a hapless office worker looking for love. So I'm thinking of a film review, maybe for the writing paper of the Cambridge English exams. But in this case, we're referring to the protagonist of this film who is hapless. So he's unlucky, you know, probably in love. And, you know, the viewer feels sorry for this guy, this poor guy who can't find love. And the next adjective is timeless. Timeless. Now, this can be a little bit confusing because it doesn't really mean without time exactly. It's just used to refer to something that is unaffected by changes in fashion or society. So if you describe something as being timeless, basically you're saying it could exist at any time in history and it wouldn't really have changed. So we often use it to refer to art or music or that type of thing. Maybe a book could be described as timeless, or a timeless story. So you could have read it in the 1920s or in the 2020s and it wouldn't really have changed. It would still have value. So for example, the Beatles songs are timeless and can be enjoyed by every generation. So that's my opinion. Maybe you don't agree. Maybe you think that the Beatles are old-fashioned and you don't want to listen to them now. But in my opinion, these songs of the Beatles were popular and listened to by lots of people, millions of people in the 1960s, but I still think people can enjoy them now and they're relevant now, they are timeless. And the next adjective is thankless. Thankless. Now this does mean basically without thanks, but only in certain contexts and situations. So it's referring to an unpleasant or difficult job or task that is not appreciated by others. So you don't get the thanks you deserve, perhaps, for doing the task. So it's not just when somebody doesn't say thank you. For example, if you open the door for somebody and they don't say thank you, that doesn't mean it's a thankless task. It's usually something bigger than that. So the example, as a housewife and mother of 3, Mary felt that her work was unappreciated and thankless. Okay, so in this case, the job is being a housewife and a mother of 3, which in Mary's opinion, she wasn't really valued or didn't get the thanks that she perhaps deserved. And the next one is reckless. Reckless. And now this is C2 level vocabulary, according to Cambridge, by the way. And it means showing a lack of caution or just not being worried for the consequences of your actions. So, of course, it's very negative. If you describe someone as being reckless, it's not good. For example, we often talk about reckless driving. So if somebody drives recklessly, they're not driving with sufficient caution and they're not really worried about causing accidents or affecting others. But the example, Kate's reckless spending habits left her in debt, which she's still paying off to this day. So here we're referring to Kate's spending habits as being reckless. So she was spending her money in a careless or irresponsible way. She wasn't spending her money in a cautious way. And the next one, which is also a C2 adjective according to Cambridge, is ruthless. Ruthless. And we use this adjective to refer to someone who shows no compassion or mercy. So they're really quite cruel. And it's usually in order to achieve some kind of goal, a personal goal. So the example, the CEO of the company was ruthless and fired 6 employees in one afternoon. Okay, so that's pretty cruel, right? Firing 6 employees in one afternoon. Obviously, the CEO has his or her objectives, and they felt that the best course of action to reach those objectives was to fire 6 employees. So that's quite a ruthless thing to do, especially in one day or in one afternoon. And the last adjective for today, which is my favorite, I usually leave the best till last, it's toothless. Toothless. Now, depending on the context, this can have a more literal meaning. If somebody is toothless, they have no teeth. So often children or elderly people maybe are toothless. And we can describe a grin, so a smile, as being toothless, a toothless grin. So often little children who don't have their teeth yet and they give these big smiles, it's a toothless grin. But toothless also has the meaning of having no real power, no strength or effectiveness. Usually when we're referring to measures or rules, or even some kind of institution or organization. So let's look at the example to make sure you really understand it. The measures previously implemented were considered toothless, and a more stringent approach is recommended. Okay, so we're referring to toothless measures. They weren't effective or strong enough. So a more stringent, so a more strict approach is recommended, because the original measures had no real effect, no real power, no real strength. They were toothless. So how many of those adjectives did you already know? You may have been familiar with some of them, but perhaps you didn't know the exact meanings. As always, use it or lose it. Come up with your own examples, share them in the comments. And watch this video next for more very useful advanced vocabulary. And I'll see you very soon for another video.